Hey, what's going on, everybody? Happy Sunday. Why is my microphone not working? Oh, it's working. All right. Hey, everything's working first try. Howdy. Welcome to the stream. I'm Ian Douglas. I'm the author of the website that you see down here, techinterview.guide. And Sunday streams, we spend talking about career stuff, talking about the job hunt, talking about company research, talking about resume reviews, anything along those lines. So if you want a resume review, let me know. Feel free to drop it in this form over here. Price Server, good to see you. Thanks for dropping by in chat. Hello. Hope your Sunday is off to a good start so far, if it's still Sunday where you are. But yeah, welcome. Let me just grab another chat window here. Here we go. All right, awesome, cool. Thanks for dropping by, Price Server. So Sunday is when I stream more interview prep and career prep. Thursday is more of my maker night where I get into things like what I've got going on in the 3D printer, which failed overnight horribly. Sadly, I started seeing how well my this printer could do a helmet, had a gigantic layer shift and completely ruined the helmet. So it's not recoverable whatsoever, but not a big deal. Um, but hey, we are less than 20 subscribers away from 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. So if you could help me out and go over to the YouTube channel and subscribe over there, I'd really appreciate it. When we hit 1,000, we're gonna do a giveaway. So I've got this multicolor treasure chest. This is all 3D printed, and it's empty right now. It slides open, and it's empty right now, but it won't be empty when the person receives it. So whoever gets the giveaway, they're gonna get the treasure chest, and it's gonna have some kind of treasure inside. So looking forward to giving that away. But we have to hit 1,000 subscribers on YouTube first. We're really close. I had a fellow streamer kind of shout that out for me last night, and got a few extra folks. Let me go see how far away we are. Go to where's my creator panel? All right, we'll just do this. Oops. Let's see. I am up to 987 subscribers. I'm 13 people away from doing a giveaway. So once we get the last 13 subscribers, we'll give that thing away. And pretty excited about that. I did mention in our Discord community that I've got a whole bunch of giveaways planned. So if you want to go check out our Discord community, you're welcome to do that. Let me grab that link. So you can go check out our Discord community over here in chat, and you can go see what's up with that. And then you'll get up to date on all of the giveaways and stuff that we're going to have over the next couple of months. We've got a lot of them planned. So um, this month we'll have the treasure chest. Next month we're going to be doing a whole bunch of them. But I'm also going to be traveling a little bit, so there will be a couple of streams between now and the end of March where I won't be around to stream, and that'll typically be on the Thursday nights. I should be around for most of the Sundays. I think there's one Sunday in March that I won't be around. Maybe 2 Sundays in March that I won't be around. And so I've got to get my schedule back up and kind of automated is really what I want it to be. So on the website, techinterview.guide, you can see there's a like a live stream page on there, and that'll basically go into all of the details of like when am I streaming and what am I going to be talking about and things like that. And I haven't been keeping that up to date. What I want to do is I want to be able to pull that out of a database. And sorry, I got something in my eye. I want to pull it out of a database and be a little more dynamic about it and have the website actually pull it out of like Airtable, so that people that go to that page, they'll just see like the next 4 or 5 weeks worth of that. And so I might do that Tuesday night. So Tuesday nights I like to do live coding. And so I'll probably be doing live coding about the website on Tuesdays. Thursday is kind of my maker night where I'm going to get into some painting and stuff. I've got some airbrushing area stuff's kind of set up here next to me. So I'll be getting into that painting this week. And then I'm going to start with just a cardboard box. And then I also got some acrylic cut that I'm going to make like an acrylic box so that I can have better lighting. Because right now I've got a cardboard box like this where the flaps are taped upright, and I can spray into that like a little spray booth. So that's going to be Thursdays. Tuesdays will be live code, and then Sundays career prep, interview prep, and things like that. So if you've got questions about tech interviewing, how to get a job in the tech industry, how to apply for those jobs, how to research companies for, do I even want to work there, anything along those lines, resume reviews, things like that. That's what today's stream is going to be about. Otherwise, I don't really have a topic to go over. I think I've got everything out of the resume reviews. Yep. So we have no new resume reviews. And so if you'd like a resume review, feel free to drop it in the chat that I put in there earlier. Otherwise, hope everybody's doing good. A couple more companies doing layoffs this week that are affecting, like big numbers of people. Like PayPal just laid off a bunch of people. Who else? Who else was the other big one? It was like a big Fortune 500 company or Fortune 50 company that you wouldn't have expected to do like big layoffs, but they were laying off like 6 or 7% of their staff, which was like 1,000 people or something like that. And it can be a little bit disconcerting when we hear like, oh, this big tech company is doing layoffs. But keep in mind that the people that they're laying off aren't necessarily developers. They're not necessarily engineering team members. They might be like sales or marketing or support or, program managers or project managers that are running projects and programs that aren't generating revenue. So I think what a lot of companies are doing right now is they're taking a look at, what kinds of initiatives have we taken on in the past year that we kind of hired all these people for, and which ones of these are actually worth keeping around and continuing to build versus which ones should we stop doing. And I think that's one of the big pushes that a lot of companies are taking a look at right now is which of these programs do we actually need to be running versus which ones do we want to have running. And I think that's where a lot of companies are doing these layoffs. So it's actually, I need to go change the title here. Company research, interview prep, career advice, come ask, anything. YouTube, push for a giveaway. All right, I'm just going to go set that in there. I'm going to change this over to software and game development. One thing that OBS doesn't do well is when I switch back and forth between my maker profile and my career profile, because I have different layouts and different backgrounds and things like that for each one, is it changes or it keeps like one streaming information block. And so I have to remember to go in and like change that before I actually go live, because everybody today just got a notification saying Ian's going to talk about 3D printing, which is why I've only got 3 viewers. But welcome in if you're hanging out in chat today. I'm going to be talking about company research and doing resume reviews. If anybody wants a resume review, feel free to come by and drop it in that form. And yeah, let me finish. So take out that giveaway, resume review, interview prep. Yeah, I think those would be good for tags. All right. So we got that updated. So the Twitch information under the stream will be updated. I need to think of something that's a little more generic that I don't have to go in and change it, but I think it's good discipline for me to go in and change it before I actually hit the go live button or start streaming button. Fool's Nabel, hello and all that. Hello to you too. Hope your Sunday was very good. Hello from over in Europe. Hope you're doing well. So yeah, we're just hanging out, and we're gonna chat about interview prep and company research and things like that. Yeah, I got all the lights up. One of them actually stopped working, so I contacted Nanoleaf, and I'm like, hey, this panel just doesn't light up anymore. So that's the empty hole that we see up here. In retrospect, I should have put it here instead, but all these things are glued together. So I would have to literally like snap it off of there to move it down here instead. Um, but yeah, I had fun putting the putting all the lights together. This light's being hidden by the 3D printer, but this 3D printer is probably going to move in the workshop at some point. So you'll see more of that background in the back. Um, how's the mood in the U.S. when it comes to hiring? So companies are still, so some companies are still doing hiring freezes. Some of them are starting to open up on hiring again. Um, so what I was explaining earlier in the stream before you came on, Fool, was that like companies are laying people off, but they're not necessarily developers that they're laying off. They're laying off like other technical roles, like they might be laying off program managers and project managers and so on. It's a big company, so I suppose it's different in different regions. Yes and no. A lot of these companies are across the country, though, and so when they do layoffs, it kind of impacts a lot of people in a lot of regions. Some companies are laying off like entire regions where they're like, "Yeah, we just don't need that team, in this area working on this project anymore." 'Cause sometimes they'll do that. They'll say like, "Oh, we're gonna go spin up this new project, and we're going to hire a team in Chicago to do that." And then that project, they start realizing like, hey, this is costing a lot of money. It's taking a lot of time. Let's go ahead and cut that program. And so all the people in Chicago lose their job, things along those lines. So we're seeing people getting laid off kind of across the board, but the people that are getting laid off aren't necessarily developers. And so when you hear the news of like, oh, eBay just laid off 6% of their staff, they just laid off like 600 or 700 people, keep in mind most of those people are not developers. Yes, some of them are going to be their developers, but it's not going to be like, oh, we let go 600 software developers. And I think that that's one of the things that scares people the most is they hear that companies are doing layoffs and they're like, oh, well, I guess I can't apply for a job at that company, or I guess I can't do, you know, such and such, or like that role isn't going to exist anymore. Like no, like companies still need to make money. Like they can't just lay people off and hope that everything else is going to be okay. They still have to put those resources into other projects that are going to make them money. And so that's why we still see companies hiring. Even though they're doing layoffs, they're still hiring people, and they have to keep hiring people because they've got other initiatives that they still need to get done. It's just they couldn't keep the people that they had on the team. They couldn't keep them on the team. And so I think that's where we're going to start seeing some changes, like over the next 3 to 6 months. We're still going to see companies hiring engineering teams, and people to join engineering. And so there's still going to be software jobs out there. And so it's really important that you show the value when you're applying for the jobs. It's important that you show the value to the company. Press Server asks in chat, do you have a plan or resources that you can use to get better at system design interviews? I do, actually. Let me go grab some of those and I'll drop those in chat. So I do help people with system design interviews and mock interviews. If you want, you can book my time over on a site called MeetAPro.com. I don't have a short link for it yet. But I'll just drop this in here. MeetAPro.com. So I do some mock interview styles on there. I'm also on interviewing.io. But on neither of those platforms can you go in and say, like, how do I specifically book a time with Ian? MeetAPro.com, if you find the mock interview sessions that I do, you can book my time. But on interviewing.io, you just get placed with a random, like senior or like very senior type of person who wants to do mock interviews. But on MeetAPro.com, I have a resume review block on there for an hour, which is effectively the private resume review that I do here on the stream. But that mock interview or the resume review that I do there, if you tell me that you're coming from the stream, then the money that you pay the platform that I get from that will put into the donation fund. So I don't keep money that I make as a streamer. And so if you come through that platform and say, hey, I found you on your live stream, then the money that I get from the platform, I think it costs you like the junior entry level role mock interview, I think costs you $60, and I think I get 50 of that. I'm going to put that $50 into the donation fund that we have going on right now. So yeah, let me go get the system design resources. So This first one I'm going to drop in chat. So I'm going to drop a couple of links in chat. And for those watching on YouTube later on, I'm going to put these in the description later on. So this first one, I don't know if this person pronounces their name Don or Donnie, but this person, Don, I'm just going to call him Don Martin, was a system architect at Facebook. And so they started putting this thing together, and it is a lot of information. Like this page is gigantic. And so definitely use the table of contents at the top of it. But it'll go through like these are all the different kinds of things that you need to know when it comes to doing system design interviews. Like these are the different kinds of components that you can build. This is how they're used. This is what some companies are going to want to hear about. Now, hear me on this. You do not have to memorize this entire page and have a solid understanding of absolutely everything on this page. If you're very, very senior and you're going for like an architect level role, then you should know most of the stuff on this page already because you've been doing this kind of stuff over the course of your career. But if you're still relatively new, like less than 5 years of experience, and let me actually pull this up in a browser window, and then we'll look at it over there. So let me pull that over here. Gonna close some of these other tabs. Let me switch screens. Let's go over to here. And so you don't have to know absolutely everything on this page, because if you look at the scroll bar over here on the left, like this page is enormous. Like it goes on and on and on and on and on. Lots and lots of diagramming in here. And contributions are welcome. So if there's something else that you see that you'd like on here, you can absolutely contribute to this. But definitely use the table of contents on here for like the different kinds of things that you want to do. Most of you will probably start with just, these are the topics and so on. And then, do we want consistency in the system that we're building? Do we need a high availability? Do we need load balancing? Like some of these things you can do kind of later on. Caching, doing async work, communication between different parts, security and things like that. So not all of these are going to come into play on every system design interview. So that's the other thing to keep in mind is this stuff isn't necessarily like you don't have to cover every one of these topics as well. So there's going to be some learning curve in here around like what do we need to talk about during the interview and what don't we need to talk about in the interview. I'm just going to move some stuff around on the screen here a little bit. Bear with me. So keep that in mind. You don't have to memorize everything on this page. And not everything on this page is going to come up in every system design interview. When it comes to system design interviews, we care more about the things that you've built and the actual experience that you have building these things than just the theory of, oh, I read this thing on a website. And so keep that in mind. You don't have to have all this stuff memorized. Not all of this stuff is going to come up in every system design interview. And the stuff that does come up in the system design interview is really like, with very few exceptions, there aren't many technically incorrect answers, but there are better things than others. Like, don't just say, oh, I'm just going to add caching and that's going to make it faster. Like, you have to be able to talk about, this is what I'm going to cache. This is why I'm going to cache. This is how much I'm going to cache. This is how I'm going to invalidate that cache. Don't just say, oh, I'm going to add caching and that's going to make it, magically faster. You have to know what you're caching and why and so on. So I really like this resource. A lot of people have been contributing to this, and it's been going on for years, like started 6 years ago, and it's constantly being added to. So I would absolutely, take a look at this. They've all, people have also been translating it as well. So that's my go-to. That's number one. Number two, I'm going to drop this link in chat next. This one is a YouTube channel about system design interviews. And so if we pull this up and take a look at this real quick, and this is a whole channel just on system design interviews. So you can subscribe to this. You can, see, other things coming in. Now, these videos are old, 3 years old, but they're still going to give you a pretty good high level idea of, what is expected in system design interviews. Now, because these are 3 years old, they're not going to be super modern, but it's really, like what is a distributed message queue? And so between this resource and the one that I just showed from, I guess it's Donnie Martin or Don Martin. I need to find out whether he pronounces his name Don or Donnie. But between the two of these, you're going to have a really good idea of like, these are the high level kinds of components that when you're diagramming these things out, like, do you need to talk about a load balancer? Do you need to talk about a web server? Do you have like read and write APIs? How is that going through some sort of caching into your database layer? Like, what does this stuff look like? What does the queue look like? It's going to give you like really good high level kinds of understanding. And then if you actually want to practice some system design interviews, let me pull this one up here. Oops, wrong window. These are a handful as of late last year, about the 8 most asked system design interview questions. Now, this one gives you the answers. How do you design a social media app? And a lot of times the prompt that you're going to get in a system design interview is just really high level, like, go build Instagram. Like, how would I build Instagram? Or how would I build an API to do it like a news feed style social media app? And a lot of times what they really want to know is, what is your experience building this kind of thing? Or do you have experience building this kind of thing? And I think it's important in these interviews to be able to explain the difference between, this is what I've built and this is what I know to go build. And so I think it's really important for you as an interviewee to be able to discuss the things that you have actually done hands-on and the kinds of things that you have read about and learned about, and being able to differentiate between the two. Because to walk into the interview and say, oh yeah, I would build this, they're going to walk away from that interview going, okay, but how much of that could you actually implement? It's like, well, I know to use a message queue, but I've never actually implemented a message queue. That's important for them to know. And so I always err on the side of being honest with, I've built this kind of thing, or I know how to build this kind of thing, but being able to differentiate, I don't actually know how to build that thing. And so being able to describe, this is what I know to build, this is what I've actually built at a previous job. Now, I've done some mock interviews over the past couple of weeks with people who wanted to do system design interviews who have been more on the entry level side. And the first thing that I always tell them is like, when you're fresh out of college or fresh out of university or coming out of a boot camp specifically, you're probably not going to get a system design interview. You might, but they just want like really, really high level, like, what sorts of things do you need? I know I need like a web application, and I need to talk to a database, and I've got to go call a third-party API, and I need to get all that stuff up to a front end. But you don't necessarily have to know like how to use message queues and things like that. So earlier in your career, the expectations are going to be very different. Sorry, let me go back to this screen. If we go back to Don Martin's diagram here, like, if you're an entry-level dev, you're probably not going to be diagramming all of this stuff because you're not going to know a lot about these things. But the thing that I coach people on, and I think I've actually got this on the website, if you're doing a system design interview, you can take some inspiration on that system design interview from Bob Ross. If you've ever watched Bob Ross paint a painting. So Bob Ross is this guy, he lived back in the, well, I think he passed away in the late 90s, early 2000s. And, big poofy afro, skinny white dude that would paint these paintings on a TV show called The Joy of Painting. And it ran for like 30 seasons. Like he was on TV a long, long time. And, very super mellow. Don't watch his videos if you're trying to stay awake. Like, if you have a problem falling asleep, just throw on some Bob Ross videos and you'll be out in like an hour. He's just got this really deep, soothing, very gentle demeanor and whatever as he paints. But the way that he paints his paintings, he starts with the sky, and then he paints in the clouds, and then he paints in a mountain range of some kind. And then he gradually gets into the foreground, and then he figures out, do I build a little house, or do I paint a little house, or am I going to do a lake, or am I going to do both? Do I do a little waterfall? And then he paints in the high detail of, that what we call the happy little trees and the little bushes, and I'm going to put a fence post in here, and I'm going to put some snow on the fence post. And so it's gradually getting into more and more and more detail. But when it starts out, it's very vague. It's very high level concept. And I think you need to do the same thing when you're doing system design interviews. You need to design your system like Bob Ross would paint a painting. You want to start with a high level diagram of these are the major components that I need. And then as you're going through and describing things, your interviewer will kind of lead the discussion, or you can, straight up ask them, which of these components do you want me to talk about more? And they'll tell you. They'll be honest with you, and they'll say, hey, I'd like to hear more about your experience with the database schema, or I really want to hear more of your experience with, service communication and how you get different services to communicate over the network and things like that, and do that in an efficient, effective manner, and so on. And so sometimes they'll lead the discussion to where you have like expertise actually building things, or they're just going to want to hear, what do you know to go build? Because there's a big difference between what have you actually built and what do you know to build. But start with a really high level diagram. Like just start building out really high level blocks, diagram that stuff out, and then gradually get into more and more and more detail. You don't want to start with, oh, okay, you want me to design the social media app. This is what I'm going to cache, and this is specifically how I'm going to cache it and things like that. You don't want to get into like super specific detail too early. You want to start very high level and gradually get into more and more detail. Zombie Hedgehog hanging out in chat. Hello, Zombie Hedgehog. Good to see you. Zombie, I might want to chat with you later on. My Voron is having a pretty consistent layer shift problem. I was starting to print a helmet last night and had a massive layer shift of several inches. So I'd like to pick your brain on that a little bit. We're just chatting about system design interviews. And how you need to start at a really high level and gradually get into more and more detail. Like when I had an idea for my workshop, I didn't know exactly where this printer was going to go. I knew it was going to be on this workbench somewhere, right? But I still have to figure out what's the layout of the room going to be before I can figure out where I'm going to put the printer. So same kind of thing with system design. You need to plan out what are the main, in my case, pieces of furniture. How am I going to lay those out around the room? And then I can figure out, okay, what do I put on which workbench? What do I, what kind of power do I need for each workbench and all that kind of stuff. Hey, RC. So that's how I approach system design. So those are the 3 resources, and I'll put those in the YouTube description down below. And then I've also got kind of like a 7-step sort of process. Let me see if I can pull this up in like a web editor of some kind and share that. Let's see, where can I put that? I just open Google Keep here or something. Let me go over to Tech Interview Guide. And I'm just going to start a new note. Just want to push some other stuff off the screen here. So let me go back over to the screen. So this is a 7-step thing that I like to follow and like to coach people on when you're talking about system design. So step 1 is you have to ask clarifying questions about what is it that they want you to build. You have to know, you have to be really clear on, okay, you want me to build out the social media app, but which component of it do you want me to focus on more? You have to ask questions about some of that stuff, and then start asking about functional and non-functional requirements. So a functional requirement is, I need a news feed, and that news feed has to have text and images. A non-functional requirement is, how often does that news feed get updated? It's less important about how the thing actually operates. It might be like a non-functional requirement could be, is it geographically based, sort of thing. Step 2, determine your high-level design. And this is where you're kind of sketching out those high-level components of, okay, I need this kind of server. I need these kinds of read and write APIs. I need these kinds of databases. And keep in mind too that one of the things that I see most in a system design mock interview is people trying to fit everything into one kind of database. Like they know relational databases really well, and so they try to put this whole social media app inside a relational database. Or they know like NoSQL solutions really well, and so they try to make everything NoSQL. But then things aren't really related as far as, whatever. And so there are different kinds of databases out there to actually use. And so most modern applications are using some mix of databases. You'll have some relational, some non-relational, something like a social media type app. You might also get into graphing databases. A lot of monitoring is going to get into what we call time series databases, where it's tracking things based on date and time, which a time series database might also be good for building out news feeds and so on. So you have to create that really high level design. That's where I was talking about Bob Ross, right? Bob Ross paints the sky and then the mountain, and then he gradually gets into more detail. He can't start with a happy little tree and then paint the mountain behind it. It's a lot harder. It doesn't, like the picture's not going to look as good if you paint the mountain after the fact. You have to start with the mountain and you have to build this thing kind of in layers, same way that you would do like an oil painting. So from there, if they want you to get into database schema, other storage, things like that, that's where you can start getting into more of the nitty gritty of, okay, let's talk about what's actually in the database, so that you can get into an estimation of, this is how much data we're actually going to be storing. This is how much data we're going to be pushing around the system. This should only take a couple of minutes, this stage here. If you've planned everything well so far, coming up with just really high level. It doesn't have to be like down to the megabyte of data, but just roughly speaking, are we storing, are we talking like 50 gigabytes of data every hour? Are we talking terabytes of data every hour? Like how much data, how often are we talking about like storing and moving around the system? It's an estimation. It's an estimation only. It doesn't have to be super accurate, but they want to know that the idea that you have about what you're storing and what you're moving around is sound. They want to know that you've got good ideas there, but it doesn't have to be super high granularity as far as detail. It's just an estimation. And then from there, you're gradually going into more and more detail on each of the components that you've sketched out. And so this is where, like Bob Ross has got the sky and the mountain and, kind of the area of like a lake or a body of water that, he's got those three things in every painting. You go watch any of his paintings and he's got like, he's got a sky and a mountain and a lake of some kind, with very few exceptions. But there's always going to be trees in his paintings. But you gradually get into more and more detail. So the trees that he has in the background, he doesn't like paint in all the individual branches and things like that, but he saves that for the foreground. And so you gradually want to get into more and more detail. But again, you don't want to get into like super fine detail yet. You just need to go from a 50,000 foot view to like a 30,000 foot view and start describing a little bit more about each of those components. Or ask your interviewer at that point, like, which of these components do you want me to spend more of my time? Because again, they might want to hear about your experience or your expertise in a particular area, but it's also really important as you're sketching these things out and talking about them to say, I've actually built a system like this at, in this project at such and such company, or this project at school. I've actually built something very similar to this piece over here. This piece I know theoretically to go build, but I've never actually done that. It's okay to say that in an interview, because they need to know, what do you actually have experience building versus what do you know to go build? Like having the knowledge and having experience are both important. They don't expect you to have experience in all the things. Again, like I said, if you're going for like a super senior level, architect level, you should have experience building a lot of those kinds of components. But if you're earlier in your career, like 5 years or less, I would say once you get like 3 years experience, you're probably going to get a system design interview of some kind. It's rare, but not unheard of, that you're going to get a system design interview as an entry level job, depending on the kind of job that you're doing. But they're not going to expect too much detail earlier in your career, but later in your career, they're going to want more detail about each of the components. If you have time, so I usually tell people, if you've got less than 5 years of experience, I wouldn't worry too much about these last two steps. You're probably going to run out of time before you even get to these two steps anyway. But if you can figure out, okay, how do we grow this from here? If we got 10 times as many users, or 100 times as many users, or 100 times as much traffic, which of these components are going to fail first? How do we protect against that? How do we identify those bottlenecks? How do we protect against those? How do we fix those bottlenecks? And so you're not going to really get into these two steps until later on. Now, I've also seen some system design interviews where it's like, hey, you've got this system and it's starting to have a problem. How would you identify where the problem is? How would you start to fix it? So again, depending on what the role is, depending on what the company is doing, depending on what the role is that you've applied to, they're going to have different expectations about which of these steps you're going to be spending your time on. So I think it's good practice to practice all 7 of these steps, but then keeping in mind like the whole Don Martin, he's got a lot of information in here. So how do you talk about the read and write APIs, or like something that you write to and you can immediately read back from? How does it go through caching into your database? Do you even need cache yet? Could you cache it later on? Knowing, like, you could just say like, hey, when I'm reading and writing this stuff out of the database, I'm going to need some kind of like pass-through cache one way or the other, but I'll actually design that later. So I'm just going to draw a block here that I'm going to need some cache between my API and my database, but I'm going to get to that a little bit later on. They'll be okay with that. Again, you don't want to just say like, oh, I need caching. I'm just going to cache everything, because then your cache is ineffective. Your cache is really only effective when you know what you're caching and why you're caching it. Otherwise, it's not going to be beneficial. So, Thindal, good to see you in chat as well. RC Maniac says, step 2 is where I messed up, the dedicated system design interview that you did. Gotcha. And RC says, I learned more on system design approach from that YouTube channel. Yep. So I really like that resource for sure. And Zombie says, I've always been super interested in design and layout of stuff. Yeah. And it's a good place to start, but without that layout, you can't go into more detail. Because then you don't have a good plan of like, which part do I actually speak to? As opposed to like, oh, you want me to build this thing out, and you end up sort of hyper focusing on one component, and they wanted to hear about a more broad kind of layout. And if each of these blocks on the wall behind me, if each of these were a server and they're all kind of connected and talking, like, how do I get this server here to talk to this server over here? Like, what's that data path, across all these systems, and how much data are you pushing, and what needs to get pushed along the way? And now this system at the end of the chain has all this extra work to do. Is there something that we could have passed from this system, up through all of these things to get down to this server, to where this server doesn't have as much work to do later on? Like, is there something we could, and these are the bottlenecks that you can identify later on. But if you don't even sketch out all of these as your systems in the first place, then you don't know what you can really talk about in that system design interview. So approach system design like Bob Ross paints a painting. Start really high level detail, get the shape of the picture, and then gradually get into more and more detail to where you're painting the happy little trees and talking like really fine level detail. You don't want to start with fine level detail too soon, or you're going to miss the big picture. I feel like if I had to summarize system design into the shortest sentence word possible, it would be caching. I mean, caching is definitely helpful and beneficial, but you have to know why you're caching and what you're caching. Because, like I've said a couple times now, like, just to say I'm just going to cache things is actually less beneficial. You have to know what you're caching and why, and how much you're caching. How are you going to invalidate that cache later on? How do you know when that cache is no good anymore? You have to be able to know those things. But again, in a system design interview, like, it's rare that you'll get into like a technically inaccurate thing. Like, unless you absolutely don't understand what caching is, you're not really going to lose points because you've said something technically inaccurate. Really, what they want to walk away from is, what have you actually built and what do you know to go build? So what's your experience and what's your knowledge? Because you need both. And it's okay that you haven't actually gone and built all of these things. Studying up on this stuff is going to be important for sure. But it's not critical that you have actually built all of these things. It's also really hard to practice. Like, let me go design this, social media app, and I'm going to go build all these Docker containers. I'm actually going to go like build a social media app in all these Docker containers and be able to deploy it. Because you're either going to spend a ton of money actually deploying these containers to some cloud service, or you're going to completely like overload your system by spinning up 50 Docker containers with all these different sorts of pieces that you're going to need. You would summarize what are the needs. Yeah. And so that's step one, right? Is really determining like, what is this actually, like, what is it that you're actually asking me to design? Like which part of this, like social media, okay, I need this part and this part and this part. Like which of those things do you actually want me to go into the design of? And if they say like do these 2 or 3 or 4 things, then you know what you need to sketch out and where you need to spend your time. But the interviewer is also going to guide that conversation. So the interviewer is also going to have ideas and opinions on, let's talk about this part, let's go into a little more detail on this or that, to where you can gradually get into better conversation with your interviewer about that. Thindel and I just know ancient stuff. Yeah, for sure. RC Maniac's got people coming over. Cool. Thanks for dropping by, RC. Appreciate the lurk either way. You're not even that old. Yeah, I mean, some companies just deal with really old technology and really old architecture and like older ways of doing things. Some companies are a lot more modern. Some companies want to become modern, but they don't know how. And so sometimes they do system design interviews just to hear like, oh, hey, Thindal, tell me how you've done this thing at this other company because we want to get into that too. And it's not that they're trying to interview you to get you ideas and then not hire you. They would actually want to know like, design the system for us. Like, oh, that sounds really cool. How much of this have you actually built? Because we're looking to hire somebody to actually come build that here. So again, the more of that value you can show to the company, the more likely you're going to get through that interview and the more likely you're going to get that job offer at the end. How would you modernize a web form application? Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff in there for sure. Good deal. Yeah, thanks for the question about system design. I know that was a very, very long answer getting into that. Like, I think I just spent like half an hour just talking about system design. And so on MeetAPro.com, I do mock interviews right now for algorithm questions, but I'm probably going to add some things on there for system design as well to help people practice system design. So if you go over to MeetAPro.com, let me pull that up over here too. I'll kind of show you what you can search for. So if you go to MeetAPro.com, so if you search for Fang, you're going to get a lot of stuff on here. If you search for Fang-level, you'll find mine because it's only searching the description. Otherwise, I would say like search for Ian Douglas 736 because I actually put that in the description here. Like, oh, you can contact me on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Twitch with the username Ian Douglas 736. My hope was that I could sort of cheat around their system because like what would be really nice right now is for people to say like, I want to go to meetapro.com/Ian Douglas 736 and just see all of the sessions that Ian offers. And they don't do that, unfortunately. And so I thought, well, if I put my username in the description and then people search for Ian Douglas 736, would they actually find the things that I have in here? But when you search for that, it searches 0 results. So it's not searching the description. It's only searching the title of the session, which is unfortunate. So if you search for Fang-level, then you'll find my 3 mock interview things. And I do entry level, intermediate level, and senior level. And the only thing I ask is like, send me your LinkedIn ahead of time so that I can verify which level you are so that senior folks aren't trying to do the $60 session. But if you do like resume review, I think is the other one. So I've got my tech resume interview one on here as well. So again, I only get a portion of this money. I don't get all $75 of that. I think I get like 80% of that money. They keep 20% for using their platform. And so of that remaining money, if you come from the stream and you book my time on meetapro.com, send me a message through the platform and say, I heard about this on your live stream. And then whatever money you pay the platform that I get paid from the platform, I'm going to put into our donation, diversity and tech fundraiser. Because again, I don't keep money that I make as a streamer. And so if you're booking these through the live stream, then I'm going to turn around. I'm going to put that money back into our fundraiser. So I just did one of these the other day with somebody. I don't think they left. Yeah, they didn't leave me any reviews. I got to bug that person to like leave me a review. I also need to make sure that, yeah, so I'm doing a trip to Detroit on these days, so I won't be available. So Thursday the 23rd, I'm going to be in Detroit, so I won't be streaming on February 23rd. And then I'll be here that whole next week in March. But I think this week in March, I'm going to be in India, so I won't be streaming that Sunday or that Thursday. And then I'll be back this whole week. So let's talk about March 14th. March 14th is a Tuesday. And for those that know what March 14th is, in the United States, we call it Pi Day. And so on Pi Day, I'm going to be doing like a whole bunch of giveaways. So we have Pi Day, March 14th. And so on Pi Day, basically what's going to happen is I'm going to be streaming. I'm going to take the whole afternoon off. And I'm going to be live streaming about pie. I'm going to be eating shepherd's pie, key lime pie, maybe some other kind of pie. The grocery store near us, they make like just these little tiny pies. And so I might, have like an apple pie and a cherry pie and a peach pie and whatever. But I'm going to enable that drop game with the little parachutes that a lot of other streamers use here on Twitch. And what I'm going to do is on Pi Day, if you do a drop and you land for 3.14, I'm going to buy you a Raspberry Pi or equivalent funding, which is about $200 right now. So I'm going to buy like a high-end Raspberry Pi, like the 4 gigabyte Raspberry Pi. So we're looking at like $200. So if you can land for 3.14 on that day, and we're just gonna run the drop thing all day. Well, not all day. I'm gonna stream for 3 hours and 14 minutes. So I'm gonna start streaming like early-ish afternoon. I'm gonna stream for 3 hours and 14 minutes, and if anybody lands for 3.14, then I'm gonna buy a Raspberry Pi for that person, or money equivalent. If you don't actually want the Raspberry Pi, I'll figure out what's the cost of a Raspberry Pi, and I'll like PayPal you the money. And then we'll probably have some donation goals and some like bits and donation goals or whatever, because all that's going to go into the fundraiser. That if those get met, once my kids are home from school, I'm going to have them like smack a pie in my face. And so we'll queue up how many pies I need to get in the face, and I'll wipe it off, and we'll like reapply the pie, kind of thing. We'll just like have a big old pie party on March 14th. So that's going to be on the 14th. Might do some other little giveaways as part of that. Again, I'm like less than 20 people away. I'm like 13 people away on YouTube from 1,000 subscribers. So please go subscribe on YouTube. Let me drop YouTube because I really want to give away this tentacle chest. This is being given away when we hit 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, and we're almost there. We got like a dozen or so to go on YouTube. So go subscribe over there if you're not already subscribed. If you're watching this on YouTube, please like and subscribe and so on, because I really want to give that thing away. And it will not be empty. Right now it's empty, but it will not be empty when I actually ship it to somebody. I'm not going to tell you what's going to be inside. It's going to be a nice surprise. But I'll put a little note in there, a little letter saying like, please take pictures and post on social media and whatever, and tag me in it. Because I'd like that person to share like what was inside and all that kind of stuff. It'll be fun. Let's see. So we got that giveaway. I'm about 500 followers on Twitch away from 2,000. When we hit 2,000 followers, we're going to do another big giveaway. That one's going to be a big giveaway. It's going to take a little while to get there, but we'll get there at some point this year, I'm sure. And then March, because I'm traveling a bunch, there's also another Sunday in March that I won't be around. It'd be the 19th, I believe. I won't be streaming on the 19th. I'm going to be doing like a little bit of travel. But once I'm back from that, then I'm going to be home. So the end of March, I'm going to start 3D printing like crazy. April is going to be like our big sort of month-long giveaway kind of thing, specifically around the donation goals, and make sure that we can hit that $1,000 community goal. Hey, Karzas, good to see you. So April's going to be like just the running monthly, month-long giveaway. So we're going to do April, July, and October this year, where we do a whole month-long giveaway series. But then I want to come up with more of these milestones as well. The other thing that I didn't talk about on the Discord community is that I'm going to be also doing random giveaways on the newsletters. And so if you want to go check out the email newsletters, there it is. You can go subscribe to those. I'm going to start randomly picking one subscriber a month from each of the newsletters. So there's a general tips newsletter, there's a behavioral questions newsletter, and there's a technical questions newsletter. And I'm going to randomly pick a subscriber from each of those once a month and say, hey, I've randomly picked you out of the database for being subscribed to the newsletter, and I'm going to send that person a prize. Provided they respond to my email, because sometimes I've emailed people that have subscribed to the newsletter and they don't respond. So I'm probably going to put a stipulation on there like, hey, if you reply within a week, I'm going to send you something. But if I don't hear back from you by such and such a date, then I'm going to give the prize to someone else. And so I'm going to randomly be picking from the newsletter as well. So I would appreciate any subscriptions to the newsletter as well. You get a car, you get a toy car. It's a good way of putting it. Everybody gets a toy car. Everybody gets a 3D printed toy car. I'm not buying any real cars here. But maybe for like a big giveaway goal, we might give away a 3D printer or something. We'll see. So yeah, RC, I mentioned to Zombie Hedgehog, who was lurking in chat, I started printing a helmet last night, and it ended up with a really bad layer shift, like really, really bad layer shift, like several inches. And I didn't catch it in time, and so it printed, a good like half inch of filament, and it's all spaghetti in there. It's not very pretty inside the Voron right now. So that's how bad the layer shift was. All of this was supposed to be on top of all of this, and it completely failed. I also put a 0.6 nozzle in there, and the texture on the helmet is coming out really, really rough as well. So I might not be able to do that one in a 0.6 nozzle. I mean, it doesn't look horrible, but there's going to be a lot of post-processing cleanup on that if I do. I think it'll do better with a smooth. This one actually had a lot of texture on it. I'll see if anybody can guess what the helmet is. So based on this and based on this, what the helmet was supposed to be. Turn it that away. So yeah, I was working on a Deadpool helmet. The eyes came out really nice on the bamboo. So those came out really nice and smooth. I'm not going to need very much in the way of post-processing on that. But yeah, the actual helmet itself is not pretty. And there's just tons of spaghetti in there. So I gotta figure that out on the Voron. I issue a challenge. Try tree supports for the helmet. I could. But if I end up with another giant layer shift like that, even tree supports aren't going to save me. But yeah, it's a good idea to actually try. What I want to try to figure out, and maybe this is something that RC or Zombie can help me out with offline, is I want to try to figure out, is there a way in the G code that I can tell it to rehome every 2 or 3 layers? I know it's going to add a lot of print time, but just to go back and rehome X and Y and then resume the print, if that would help protect against like a big layer shift like that. So at most, it might only layer shift like 1 or 2 layers. I just need to figure out, like, a lot of time corner lifting causes the nozzle to crash. It didn't. So the print bed was like nice and flat. Like everything was stuck really well to that, so nothing was lifting. Like the plate didn't lift and the print didn't lift. Like it was really well adhered on there. So I'm not sure what caused it. I'm just trying to think, like, do you happen to know off the top of your head, like, what that code, like, what the G code thing is? I'll be right back. Something just tripped a breaker. Can you turn on that?
Good thing for the batteries.
Yeah. Well, it's only on these, yeah. It's only affecting the boron. But yeah, the boron and the laser printer are on the same circuit. But it's not that much power, so I'm actually really surprised that it trips the breaker. But the laser printer takes a lot of energy when it starts up and kind of like wakes up and has to warm itself up and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
yeah, I basically just need to move the laser printer like over there so it's on a different circuit because having the laser printer on the same circuit as the bamboos and the Voron is too much. I mean the bamboos weren't printing and neither was the Voron, but like it just reset all the nano leaf lights too. Um, so not a big deal. Not a big deal at all. All right, everybody, I'm back. Um, cool. Let me tone down those lights in the background here. Kind of curious why it didn't reset the brightness on that on its own. It should have. Let me try that again. There we go. So yeah, so I need to figure out G28 XY. Okay. So yeah, so I've got my two bamboo printers which were turned on but not printing. The Voron was turned on, but it's going through a UPS, and it's all plugged into the same circuit as a not a gigantic, standard laser printer, but just the print laser printer. My oldest is working on his science fair project. It's due tomorrow, so he's like printing off all the stuff that he needs for that. We do have another laser printer upstairs. He could just go use that, but he wants to use mine. Um, so yeah. Anyway, I wanna see if I can figure out how to tell the slicer to do like that G28 command like every couple of layers. So I don't know if there's a way to do that in Prusa Slicer, but I use Prusa Slicer right now. If there's a way that I can tell Prusa Slicer like, hey, every 5 layers, like do this, or if that's like a post-processing thing, or if that's something that I can do in Clipper to say like while you're printing this thing off, like every couple of layers, like inject this thing. So yeah, if either or both of you want to like ping me on Discord and chat about that, I appreciate any ideas there. So no, it wasn't ABS; it was just PLA. So I print like 95% PLA, little bit of PETG. Um, but yeah, we can see like it started a layer shift right here, and then that layer shift got way worse, like really suddenly. And so just tons of this spaghetti all over the place in the printer right now. It's not pretty. But I got tons of that red filament, so I thought, well, let's do a Deadpool helmet, see if I can do that. The eyeballs came out really nice on the bamboo, nice and smooth. It won't take very much post processing. A little bit of like wet sanding on there. That's going to come out really nice. But the helmet has a texture to it because the person that designed it made it look like the cloth face mask from the movie. So there's a ton of texture on there, and it's not printing well either. Like the stuff that did print doesn't look nice on a 0.6 nozzle. So not a huge priority whatsoever. I just wanted to see like could I even print a helmet on this thing? Because there's someone that drops by stream. I hang out on his stream a lot, GG Bev. And I promised him that I was going to print a helmet on the Voron once it was up and running. But I got to make sure that things like a layer shift like that don't happen. But yeah, I'll definitely try out the new supports and stuff like that once that slicer gets through the alpha stage a little bit. Can I print a dark helmet? Oh, from Spaceballs? Um, Probably. I mean, it would have to get sliced into several parts and reassembled. But yeah, that would be cool. Like get that big giant, Darth helmet. That would be fun. That was actually my wife's. Well, so my wife watched Spaceballs like all through college. Well, growing up. Sorry, it was her brother's favorite movie. So growing up, she watched Spaceballs like dozens of times, but had never actually seen Star Wars. She had never seen any of the Star Wars movies until she got to college. And then she was like busting up laughing watching Star Wars because like that's when she got to understand all the references from watching this dorky Spaceballs movie the whole time. And so when we met, we met online, and she was actually taking a PHP MySQL class in college at the time, and so I was helping her with her homework. And she's like, I have to put this stuff online somewhere. So I actually registered the domain usetheschwartz.com for her as a deployment thing. I was running a web hosting server at the time, service. And so I bought her the domain for like a year, put it on my hosting server so she could like actually upload her PHP and do MySQL and stuff like that. So it was pretty fun. Um, so yeah, I actually owned usetheschwartz.com for, I don't know, a year or two. I think I registered it for like a couple of years and then she stopped using it. So um, I tested two printers that were preheating at the same time: a dehydrator, lights, laptop, dedicated subwoofer, audio receiver, TV, two teams, all running at the same time, no breaker blow. That's impressive. Um, Yeah, so I had a problem with the Voron initially that it wasn't doing the power management thing on the solid state relay very well, and so it was making the lights flicker really bad. So I got that fixed, but it didn't help. What's up, bud? Oh, just print it again, and then just um, sorry. He realized that my printer does double-sided prints. He thought it was like each page was coming out on its own. Um, he's like sighing because he's got to walk up and down a flight of stairs every time to go print something and go collect it on the printer. Um, so yeah. So anyway, she had a lot of fun in college, like actually watching the real Star Wars and then cracking up at Spaceballs. I haven't let my kids watch Spaceballs yet, but I think it'd be fun to let them see it. I've got one of my kids is like much more into Star Wars than the other. So once he finishes science fair and finishes a school play and stuff like that, we got to get him to watch Return of the Jedi. I bought him the Thrawn uh, trilogy books. So yeah, yes, yep, yep. And he wants to watch the original Mary Poppins. So his school is doing an adaptation of the Mary Poppins movie, and he's playing Mr. Banks. So he wants to watch the actual like original movie from the '70s. So it'll be fun. Yes, for sure. Spaceballs came out in '87. Yeah, doesn't make me feel old at all either. I was 13 when that came out. I hope he can pull a good scowl. So yeah, my wife actually, so they did like a full dress rehearsal yesterday at the school. They did one on Friday and they did one again on Saturday. And well, Friday was the technical dress rehearsal, so they were checking all the lights and the audio levels and things like that. And then Friday was like full costume, makeup, the whole bit. And so she got video of him like, coming out and like dancing a little bit and doing his dialogues and singing and stuff like that. So it's going to be a lot of fun. So we'll be doing that Wednesday night as a family. So we bought tickets on the Wednesday night instead of the Thursday. So I'll still be streaming Thursday this week. Um, but so yeah, so Tuesday night, I don't think we've got anything going on for Valentine's Day. So I'm probably going to stream I really want to like figure out tech interview guide and like do like a streaming schedule and have the website like pull that stuff up dynamically. So when you load the page, it'll like populate. But one of the things I need to do a little bit better, and this is where I might do some let some people come on the stream and do some backseat, or I might have a guest like come on the stream and like tell me how to do this, is do more of like the loading kind of images and stuff like that because I'm not very good at front end. And because it's a static site generator, I've got to do everything in JavaScript and CSS. Is I want to put like a little like loading animation or something on the thing so that when people go to the page, they can see that it's loading while it's actually calling uh, like Airtable to go fetch the data. And so I'm trying to decide between making that Airtable schedule database something public or keep it private and do like a cloud functions kind of thing. I'll probably do the cloud function kind of thing. Old school, yeah, because I mean the only other way that I could really do that RC would be to automate the whole process of doing the static site generator like once a day, where like every day it's like pulling the stuff down, statically generating it, and then like deploying it, which I could do too. Um, it wouldn't be that big a deal because I'm hosting it on Firebase, and Firebase is like pretty instant as far as like once it's deployed, like the new sites out there and whatever. It's the whole like while I'm like I would still need some kind of hook into Hugo, which is a the static site generator that I use to actually go fetch that data in order to like build it into the site. So one way or another, I've got to do some sort of like automatic generation. So I'm either fetching the stuff out of the database and building the markdown and then importing that into the like doing a like a search and replace kind of thing, or I do like a front end thing where it like loads dynamically off of Airtable, and it's relatively quick. Like when you go to like if you sign up for the email newsletter and you go down to the very bottom where you like so you get a newsletter and down at the very bottom it has a link to go manage your subscription where you can like unsubscribe or resubscribe or pause your subscription or change how frequently you get the messages. Um, all of that is done dynamically, and so when you click on that link, it goes to the page and it loads in your profile from Airtable. It takes like a second or two. But again, I want a good animation on that because you kind of sit there for a second and it's like nothing happens and like boom, suddenly it's there. I want to put some sort of like mask it all out, like disable all the form elements, put a loading animation in there, and then once it's loaded, then take off the animation and enable everything. I'm just not very good at that stuff. So I'll probably find somebody to come help me with that. I think that'd be a fun stream. Just walk me through, explain like I'm five, modern ways of doing these things. I know everybody's moving to like Astro and stuff like that. I don't want to have to move my whole platform to some or like move all of my content to some new platform just for that kind of control. Um, Although I know that that would be a lot more convenient for sure. But have I thought about caching? Yeah, yeah, I could just cache the data. That'll solve all the world's problems. Um, See if anybody dropped any resume reviews in. Nope, no new resume reviews. Um, so yeah, so I'll probably do that Tuesday night. So if anybody's free Tuesday and you want to come help me nerd out on that, let's do that Tuesday night. I don't, like I said, I don't think I've got any plans for Valentine's Day. My wife and I aren't really big into like holiday things like that. And then I'll be streaming Thursday. I will be streaming next Sunday, probably Tuesday, but not the following Thursday. So the Thursday is going to be like the 23rd or 24th. I won't be streaming that night. It'll be the 23rd. I'll be in Detroit. So I won't be streaming that night. I don't think I'll stream that night. If I do stream, I'll be streaming from Detroit. And so I'll be at a hotel or something. I probably won't stream. I'll probably just take that night off and go explore Detroit or something. And then I'll be streaming that following Sunday. So gonna see if I survive today first. Yeah, no worries. Having company over trumps anything I do on the stream, but it's not a big deal. Um, The other thing I need to finish doing is I've got that thing that I 3D printed for the Stream Deck, or the series of Stream Decks, because right now I've got them lying flat on the desk and it's kind of hard to see the buttons. I 3D printed some stuff to actually prop them up and be like sort of tiltable, and to where they're not all like laid out flat, and so it's going to make like kind of a rounded sort of thing in front of me. I've got to reassemble that. Now that I got the Voron built, I've got all the spare parts left over. I've got all the bolts and everything that I need. I can actually start assembling that. Now that I've got all the lights up, I've got like a bunch of new cleared out space on one of the other workbenches, so I can start moving stuff around, set up the other workbench. So I'm gradually getting this place back in order. I've got a nice big empty wall over here now, that I want to fill up with something. Probably put my Lego on display on that thing. So I'm debating whether to do more of the honeycomb storage wall, because there's like little shelves and stuff that you can get for those. And I've designed lots of my own little clips as well for the honeycomb storage wall. Um, that I'm debating doing that on, like, just keep printing these things, because the Voron prints those things fine. Like, but once it gets over like a certain height, it seems to like layer shift. Um, it's the biggest day of the year for your company on. Oh, survive today, right? Wait, what's today? What's going on today? Isn't there some kind of sporting event or something going on today? Go sports ball. I have no interest in football whatsoever. What time does the game actually start? Because I have to go to Costco, and I want to go to Costco while the football game is going on because it'll be empty. The Puppy Bowl is on. 6 oh 6:30 Eastern. That's 4:30 here. They close at 6. Okay. So I'm going to go to Costco once the Super Bowl starts, because then Costco will be empty. I'm not going to go before then because it's going to be madness. Like, I'm not going to go right now because it's going to be like absolute chaos to go to any kind of grocery store or whatever today. So typically Sundays, like, go get groceries for the week, go plan out all the meals for the week, figure out what groceries we need, go buy all the groceries, come home, start the meal prep and whatever for everything that we need for the week. I'm not going to do any of that until Super Bowl actually starts, because I am not setting foot in any grocery store until like Super Bowl is actually like on TV. Today's the best day for chicken wings. Yeah, I could see that. But yeah, I have no interest in. I've done that in the past. Actually, the one year I did that, I went to a Costco one year that the Broncos were in the Super Bowl, and I went like half an hour before the game started, and Costco was absolutely packed. And Costco had actually arranged a bunch of the TVs closer to the cash registers, facing the cash registers, so the people working the registers could watch the Super Bowl while they were working. And everyone's in their jerseys and the whole bit. And I think it was the store's way of apologizing for, sorry that we're making you work on Super Bowl Sunday. But that way they could all watch the game while they were working. Um, it was actually really fun to watch everybody watching the game, but it was madness. And so I decided that year I'm never setting foot back in Costco like on like a big game day until the game actually starts. Then I'm gonna go to the store. You want to see all the TVs set to the game? Yeah, for sure. Yeah, like it was wild because they had like the big like 80-inch TVs or whatever, like just all lined up facing the cash registers, and they were all turned up really loud and whatever, so everybody could see what was going on. It was neat that the store did that for the employees. Hey Whip, good to see you. By the way, if anybody ever wants a custom sound like Whip, just send me a DM and let me know. Like, zombies here, so let me go find like a brains or something like that. But Zombie, thanks for dropping by. Let's chat on Discord a little bit about the Voron, because I'd love to pick your brain on that a little bit. Um, RC, we just people watch the madness. I love people watching. People watching is so much fun, especially at the airport. That's like my favorite thing. I like getting to the airport like an hour earlier than I really need to, just to people watch. Because like just watching people walk by and it's like wonder where they're going and stuff like that is pretty interesting for sure. Costco's great for people watching. So is Walmart, depending on the kind of people you want to watch. Um, but yeah, today's gonna be like madness to go to any kind of grocery store. Thankfully, I don't need that many groceries. We need to buy some snacks for the kids for school. But aside from that, we've got most of the groceries we need for the week already. Go on Black Friday? Oh heck no. Christmas Eve? Definitely no. I did that one year with the kids, and it was absolute madness. Actually, so a couple of years ago, I went shopping on Christmas Eve because I had left all my Christmas shopping at the like last possible minute, and I don't think I've ever felt so depressed going shopping. Like just everything had been picked over. There was nothing left. Couldn't find anything in the right size, and it was awful. Um, when I first met my wife, she would do her Christmas shopping in like October, so everything was like planned and had everything way way in advance. Now we're both kind of like early December shoppers. So you'll be doing last minute Valentine's shopping this week. Yeah, I mean, my wife is very picky about chocolate. She doesn't like just general candy. We don't really do, anything like super romantic or anything like that. Not that we're not romantic, but just yeah, it's like meh, it's a holiday, no big deal. Um, as stated, my family would go to Costco on Black Friday, Christmas Eve, only to people watch. Oh, I got you. We'd walk around, get food court, and then just sit and watch people. That's awesome. That sounds fun. Cool. Anybody else got anything going on? Anybody need resume review, anything like that? Feel free to drop in chat if you're gonna drop a resume. We'll do some of that. Because, like I said, I'm not going to the grocery store anytime soon, so I'm happy to keep streaming and chat about like company research and things like that. I did have somebody reach out with a resume, but it was a private review, so I don't want to pull that on stream. But it needs some work. Um, But yeah, you're also welcome to reach out to me on the socials as well. I'm on Twitch, LinkedIn, and Twitter, all with the same username. Funniest moment was going to a grocery store and seeing a fridge with pre-made meals. One side said meals for two, the other side said meals for one. Ouch. Meals for one. That's funny. Let's see what else. So share some resources around system design. Hopefully that was helpful for people. I think I'm gonna add an entry on MeetAPro.com. I need to make like a short command and like a button to like drop those links because I've got one for interviewing IO, for a referral link on IIO. So if you go use that, like you'll get $100 off the first purchase, I think, or at least they used to do that. Hopefully that's still the case. Um, I get credits for like free interviews, but I don't use them because I'm not interviewing for a job anytime soon. Hopefully, knock on wood. Um, but yeah, so we started the stream talking a little bit about like job market and what's going on in the industry. Like we heard about more bigger companies laying people off. Um, but it's also interesting to think about like which of these companies are actually laying off engineers versus are they are they laying off tech adjacent roles where they're laying off like project managers and program managers and like the management layers, where that person is still contributing to the company, but they're not really working on like revenue generating features. I think those are the people that are getting laid off. I mean, that's my understanding is that those like the people that are getting laid off are not necessarily the engineers and the software developers. Like, yes, some of them are getting laid off, but when you hear like, oh, this company just laid off like 5,000 people or 10,000 people, it's like it's not 5,000 developers. It's not 10,000 developers losing their job. It's just it's a tech company and they did a big layoff. But those big tech companies are still hiring developers. So don't feel that when you see the news about a company doing a big layoff that you can't apply for a job there. You can still absolutely apply for a job. You're just going to get through the process and get those interviews. The more you do networking and the more that you can show the value that you bring to the company, that's what's going to make you stand out the most. I actually sat in on a call that MeetAProcom did this week, where they were talking about like resume review tips, and what should you put on your resume, what should you leave off your resume. But they were all like super generic tips. It was like, don't put a profile picture on there. It's like, yeah, we all know that. Like, tell us something we don't know about how to build a resume. But it was like half an hour of like super generic, like, you want your resume to be a page. It's like, yeah, we all know that. We've all known that for years. You want a one-page resume. Um, so it wasn't terribly helpful. But one of the things that they said in the thing was like, make sure that you're presenting, like take stuff off the resume that's not relevant to the company. It's like, yeah, I tell people that too. But if you like the one resume that they were kind of using as an example was like, this person had a background in accounting and then got into software development. So take all the accounting stuff off the resume. It's like, but if that's relevant to the company, like if it's a financial services company, you want to put that on the resume because that's relevant to what they do. It shows that you know about financial systems and accounting and things like that. Not that you're going to do that at the company, but that you have that understanding. You're bringing a lot more value to the company than just, I'm a software developer. And so there are things that you do want to leave on the resume, but don't talk about them as much because that's not the role that you're going to be stepping into. So. Whip saw some posts on LinkedIn about dev advocates that got laid off. Yeah. There was some company that said we're cutting 5% of HR and related roles. Yeah. My friends at Google said they got a bunch of people cut, and then the teams all put in requisitions to get the positions filled. So they've gone on to backfill basically everyone that got laid off. Yeah. Which is horrible. Yeah. And then you end up losing domain knowledge, like Thindle said. Yeah. So, they're laying off the wrong people. And then you hear, stupid things happening like Elon Musk, firing an engineer because his posts aren't getting as much visibility because people don't care about him, anymore. And so it's like he wants his own stuff like promoted heavily across Twitter. Whether or not you follow Elon Musk or whatever, like he wants his stuff to show up in your timeline so that he gets millions and millions of views. Like he's like going super ego on this stuff now, and fired an engineer over it. Fired two engineers, like senior engineers. It's like, think of the domain knowledge that they're taking away. You know, it's it's really weird. Thankfully, though, with the API changes that they're making, so they announced like over the last week or two that they're moving their API to a paid API, but only for reading data. You can still write a bot that posts to Twitter for free, but if you want to read data, I think it starts at like $100 a month or something. Elon makes other CEOs look good. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I would feel bad about buying something for $44 billion and then like completely trash it and sink it down the toilet. But I've never seen someone ruin their public image as fast as Musk. I mean, it doesn't take long to ruin a public image, but yeah, definitely doing some stuff. Didn't realize the API changes only apply to reading. Yeah, so the write API, you can write I think 1,500 tweets a month for free. If you want to write more than that, it's going to cost you money. And so services that offer that kind of stuff for free through OAuth, they might have to start charging because, like a company like If This Then That, they're going to be doing more API writes into that system. And so it might be that they're going to have to use like an OAuth token from you to post on your behalf. Otherwise, they're quickly going to hit 1,500 a month, and they're going to have to start paying for it, which means they're going to have to turn around and start charging you for it. But if you are just doing your own and you're authenticating to Twitter, like I do the Stream Deck thing here, where when I go live, I post on Twitter. Um, that that uses my OAuth through Stream Deck, but I'm I mean, as far as I know, that API is using my API key to write to Twitter, or not my API key, but my OAuth to Twitter. So I don't think that's going to have a problem. But if I need to, I'll just write my own, and I'll figure out how to do that automated stuff. So yeah, writing to Twitter is going to be free. which is weird because that's, a lot of bot activity. And, there was this whole big thing about Twitter needs to get rid of all the bots. And yet that's the one they're making free. You'd think it'd be the other way around. You'd think that they would charge you to write to the platform and that you could read the data for free. But, oh well. I still haven't switched to the official Twitter app. I mean, I miss the old school TweetDeck. I saw you post about that the other day, RC. I miss the old TweetDeck. That was a great app for sure. Yeah, good times. See what else do we got going on. So yeah, ton of giveaways. Once we hit 1,000 folks on YouTube, we'll do that treasure chest giveaway. I'm 12 people away. I'm 12 people away on YouTube right now from hitting 1,000. So go tell some people. Go tell some people to go subscribe to me on YouTube. Forgot the context for the earlier joke. This is before Valentine's Day. Funniest moment was going to the grocery store and seeing a fridge with pre-made meals. One side said meals for two. The other side said meals for one. Oh, for Valentine's Day, yeah. Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah, my wife and I just don't do much for Valentine's Day or most holidays, to be honest. We just kind of chill and hang out at home. So I'm going to finish my waffle and I need to bounce. Yeah, good luck with having people over. Good luck with that. And good luck today with the work stuff. Hope it all goes well with sports ball. I'm not going to be watching the game. I'm going to be at the grocery store while everybody else is watching the game. So it's a made-up holiday, totally. Yep, Hallmark needed to sell some holiday cards in February or something, so they made it up or something, didn't they? Something along those lines. Yeah, good times. So I'm trying to think of how I want to do the dark saber. So I got that Lego dark saber that I used to have kind of horizontally. I thought about like designing some hooks to go in between like these void spaces, like here and here, to actually like put like some little hooks or whatever and be able to mount the dark saber on that. Now I'm thinking I might do it vertically, like somewhere over here. I might hang it vertically up against that wall. But I also want to figure out like how to display the other Lego models. So kind of where this cardboard box is right now. I've got some, so the desk that I have, they had to replace the desktop and I've got another piece of that desk material. I'm thinking about cutting that the size of Riker's kennel back here and like putting that on top and have like a little shelf on top of his kennel that I can put stuff on. Cause right now it's a cover. It's just like a nylon sort of cover over the kennel to keep it dark for the dog. Watch the game at Costco. No, I'm not going to even watch the game at Costco. My boss is on call from Cancun for today just until the game ends. That's wild. So yeah, I want to put like a little shelf on here and put the Lego models and stuff like that. So when people do like the pew pew command, it'll like, get a camera like zoomed in on that. Because I've got lots of extra webcams that I can like position here on the desk and just point, that way to like zoom in on something. I just need to figure out how to actually position that and lay it out and stuff. So, let's see what else is going on. Somebody pinged me on Slack, but now I don't see what it was. Nope. Anywho. Yeah, let's see what else is going on today. There's a website that I do a lot of reading from myself. I don't really promote them that much on the channel, but I do talk about them on the website. They have really good advice columns, and they've got it in a newsletter form that you can subscribe to. I'm going to drop this in chat as well. It's themuse.com. They have an email thing that'll pop up. Like, so when you go to this page, it'll pop up the typical like we have a newsletter you should subscribe to. I actually really recommend subscribing to their newsletter. They'll send you a newsletter like a couple of times a week about companies that are hiring and like resume tips and negotiation tips and all this kind of stuff. But their advice page is actually really, really good. They've posted a lot of good stuff, and I've been quoted in some of their stuff, over the last year or two. Um, it would be, I think it's worth subscribing to. It's something that I actually read a lot myself. Um, they have pretty good articles on there. Some of it gets a little bit repetitive, but some of it's really, really helpful advice. So I recommend go check out the Muse. Again, I'm going to put all these links in. I'm going to put all these links in the YouTube description afterwards, so you can find them all down below. But yeah, I'm like 12 subscribers away. Can't believe I'm almost at 1,000 on YouTube. What I really need to do is get into some YouTube shorts. I think that'll really bump it up. I'm just really bad at coming up with, how do I design a short, that sounds intriguing. So let's do that. Let's solicit some ideas. What do you think I could talk about for only 1 minute to make some YouTube shorts? Because I know a lot of my answers tend to get really lengthy, but I'm thinking like, do you think I could distill all that system design stuff that we talked about in a minute or less, or resume tips in a minute or less, and put those out as like YouTube shorts, or put them on Instagram or whatever? Like, I'm also trying to think too of like what kinds of platforms should I use to do those kinds of things, if that's even worthwhile to people. I mean, I think it'd be fun to do, but I'm not very good at doing like, planned videos like that where I've got to like boil it down to like a 1 minute thing. But let me know in chat if you can think of something that I could talk about for like a minute. Practice and remove the gaps. Yeah, I mean, I know what I would need to do for the actual editing, but it's like to come down to like, what do I want to talk about for a minute? Like what do you think would make a good interview prep, for like a minute or less kind of content? Like I could talk about the whole like build a big resume and trim it down, or talk about like, do you even need a cover letter anymore? Things like that. Like some of those make good like short little 1 minute videos, but how much of that would actually be worthwhile? And should I do it on YouTube? Should I do it on Instagram? I'm not doing TikTok. I'm absolutely staying away from TikTok. But like, what platform do you think would be most beneficial to do that kind of thing? People are mad at YouTube Shorts, but basically all the creators are finding TV or YouTube Shorts are how you draw people in. Yeah, I mean, I'm just looking to increase the subscriber count a little bit, but I need to do better. Like I actually have to fix my my clip thing, because the chatbot now is running on a different machine that won't have access to um, the actual video. So while I'm streaming live, it's recording video, but the chatbot, because it's running on a different system, doesn't have access to that raw video file anymore. So that's the other thing that I need to fix coding at some point, that when I hit the button to start making a clip, I need to run that software locally on the system that I'm streaming from. But I'm thinking I'm probably going to have to, I don't know, I need to figure out like, when I hit that button to start a clip, do I have just that part running locally on a script that it just starts generating that right away? Because I can use FFmpeg to read or to like seek into the file and start generating a clip and start saving the clip. But like drawing more subscribers into YouTube isn't going to be as helpful unless I start doing more of those clips, because people aren't going to subscribe to watch like a 90-minute live stream, VOD. I mean, some of them will, but very few of them do, like from the analytics side of things. But I get a lot of views on the shorter videos where it's like the Q&A stuff and the playlists and stuff. That's where I'm getting most of my repeated views. So I'm trying to think of like, I'm going to have to do more clips. So like that whole like system design thing that we did during the stream here, where it was like half an hour, like that's pushing it. But that would make a good, like, just clip that out as a shorter video and then, save that as a separate video. that would be the kind of thing that I want to do. But like even talking about like the 7-step tip thing that I had for system design interviews, like talking about all of those in 60 seconds or less would be tricky, because like even just trying to read all 7 of those things in a minute is going to be tricky. Um, but like doing a YouTube short on like do system design like Bob Ross paints a painting, maybe like I also don't want to get sued, but like I kind of want to put like a Bob Ross painting in the background while I'm talking over Bob Ross, where I'm talking about how to do system design, where he's like painting the sky and painting the mountain while I'm talking about like come up with your high level concepts and whatever. Like I think that'd be fun to do, but I think that there's limitations on reusing actual commercial things like that. I know there's fair use laws and stuff like that, but gotta balance. Thanks for dropping by, RC. Appreciate you coming by all the time. Good luck with your people visit, and good luck with the game today. Hope everything goes well. Have fun at Empty Costco. I hope to. I hope it'll be empty. It'll be mostly empty. May not be completely empty, but it'll be full of everybody that doesn't care about sports ball. And a bunch of probably griefer cashiers that wish that they were home watching football. I'm just cleaning up a 3D print here off camera. So part of the Deadpool mask that I printed, I'm just pulling off some of the support material off the bottom. So like I said, these parts came out really, really clean. Which eye is this? I think it's this eye. So like this part of the mask came out really, really nice. The only thing is I'm not going to be able to wear this and glasses. So if I actually want to pull this off, I'm going to have to go get contacts and like wear contact lenses when I do the like helmet redeems and stuff like that. I started buying beanies from other Twitch streamers. So I've got a channel point redemption to wear a beanie, and I'll just rotate through some beanies. So I've got one from Amish Ace, and I got one from Moko Made. I got another one coming from Zach Rutledge sometime. That one's actually taking a while to get here. So yeah, I want to do like just stuff like that. Just something fun and lighthearted and kind of unexpected sort of thing. But yeah, let's see what else is going on. So yeah, if anybody wants a resume review, let me know. Or if you want me to dive in on more company research. So we had an anonymous question come in last week about doing company research, and that actually worked out pretty well. And that person followed up with me after the fact, and they actually ended up getting an interview and an informal offer from the company that we did the company review on last week. So that was encouraging. It gave them some better ideas about whether they even wanted to apply for a job there. But yeah, no new whispers or anything coming in on the anonymous bot. But if you want to ask a question anonymously, you can do that as well. You can send a whisper over to the chat bot. Don't send me a whisper because I tend not to pay attention to those while I'm streaming. But if you send a whisper to the bot, it'll show up or should show up in chat as an anonymous question. Actually, that's got me thinking because that actually didn't work last week. I happened to have my Twitch bot running in another browser, and I happened to notice a whisper come in. Can somebody actually send a whisper over to the bot real quick? Just send a whisper to ID 736 bot. I just want to make sure that that's actually showing up as an anonymous question in chat. So if somebody could do that real quick, I just want to verify that that's actually working. So somebody can send a whisper over to the chat bot. I just want to make sure that that's actually showing up as an anonymous question. That would be super helpful. Somebody can help me out there. It did not work. All right, so something broke on my chatbot. Thanks for helping with that. All right, so why didn't that work? Let me pull that up, see if it threw an error or something. Let's see. Yep, it threw an error. Okay, I think I've got an idea like what's happening. I think it's a problem because it's trying to figure out the date that the stream started, and it ended up with a problem there. Last stream created at. Oh, it's trying to fetch something. I think it's trying to fetch something out of Airtable that's not being written into Airtable. Okay. All right. I think I got something to go check out, so I will go take a look at that. Karzik says, for early career engineers looking to break into tech, is there a particular way that's best to list the projects on your resume? Ooh, that's a great question. How do you prioritize the projects on your resume? That's a really, really good question. So you want to find the technologies that are most relevant to the company for the job where you're applying, and you want to list those first. So if there's a particular technology that they're looking for that you have, like if they're, if you're applying for a Python job and you've done a Python project, you want to list that earlier. You don't want to just list every project you've ever done. But you want to make sure that the projects that you're highlighting show them the value that you're bringing to their company. That's the biggest thing, and you'll hear me say that a lot on the channel. Is you have to show your value on a resume. That's how you're going to get them interested in interviewing you, is by showing that value. And that value comes in a lot of forms, but that's how you're going to really get their attention, is by showing the relevancy that you have to that role. So if there's a technology that they're looking for, that they're specifically trying to hire for, you want to make sure that you're highlighting that project very prominently on your resume. That would be the first one. From there, I would be looking at things like, is there something that their company does where you've done a similar kind of project? So on the last stream, we talked about like if I've done a project about calendar scheduling, and I'm applying for a job with a calendar scheduling company like Calendly, then that would be highly relevant to them, and I absolutely want to promote that. That would actually be more relevant than the tech stack that I have, because you're showing business relevance, you're showing direct value. So if they were hiring for, say, a Python role, but I don't have Python, but I have Ruby, or maybe I've got a little bit of Python, but let's say I did a calendar project in Ruby and I've been learning some Python on the side. If they're hiring for a Python developer, I'm not going to list the Python project first. I'm going to list my calendar project first, and then I'm going to list Python, because it's going to be more important for them that I understand about calendars than it is that I understand Python. Because if I've done some Python, then they're like, okay, you've got some Python skill, but look at this calendar project that you built. Like, you actually know what our business does. You know, like, how to actually work that in your software and figure out like timing algorithms and conflict resolution in an algorithm and things like that. That's more important to them than the technical skill. So understanding what's important to the company is going to help you prioritize that stuff on your resume. And so anything that is relevant to their business, not their tech stack, anything relevant to their business, you want to promote that first and foremost. And so if they do something with music and you have a music project, you list that one first. Any technology that you have, list that next. If you have both in one project, then absolutely you want to promote the heck out of that one. You want to make sure that one's pinned on your GitHub and whatever. Like you want to really look like, oh, you want a Python developer who knows about music? Here's this Python project I made all about music. Like, that is a high degree of relevancy to their company and their tech stack all in one project. So that would absolutely be the thing that you would promote. And so you really have to understand, like, what is it that they're building as a company, and do you have relevancy around that? You want to promote those first. Secondly, I would promote any technologies that you have that they also use. Now, the technologies is also a bit of a mixed bag as well. Some of that you're only going to know from networking with the company as you're talking to the engineers and just say, like, hey, I want to make sure that I build the best resume possible. Are there any kinds of technologies that your team uses that would be highly desirable for me to put on this resume? You're going to find that out from networking with people, especially other engineers, where they're like, "Oh yeah, we're just starting to use this other database." It's like, cool, go build that in a project real quick if you can, or study up on it to where you might be able to answer some interview questions about it. Because again, you don't want to put things on a resume that you can't talk about in an interview. You don't want to just say like, "Oh yeah, I heard about this database." You don't want to put that on your resume like you can answer interview questions about it, because they'll quickly see through that and you'll actually disqualify yourself faster as an applicant by putting stuff on your resume that you can't actually interview about. Um, but while you're doing your company research, and part of that research is networking with people at the company, if you can find out about other technologies that they're thinking about, that they're exploring, again, it's showing a high degree of relevance to what they're trying to do as a team, and you're more likely to get that interview. Um, so I would start with business related and then actual tech stack after that. If you don't have any business related stuff, that's fine. But you will stand out a lot more if you do have something along those lines. We talked last stream about the fundamentals project. The fundamentals project is good for things like I know how to do auth, I know how to talk to a database, I know how to fetch data, I know how to process, deeply nested data. Like those are important skills to be able to demonstrate. But that project is not really one that you would put on a resume. That project would be more that you would speak about it during the interview, or while you're networking with people, you would show that while you're networking, but that's not really a project that you would promote on your resume, because it's just a project about like I know how to do the following fundamental things that show that I know about web development or API development or whatever. So when it comes to what do you actually put on the resume, how do you promote that on the resume, that's again, put business relevant stuff on there. But if you don't have something business relevant, you can still apply for the job. Just know that if somebody else has a business relevant project on their resume, they're probably going to get the interview first. You'll be like in the second list of people that they call. So when I would screen resumes, I would look for people that had done something really relevant to the company. And then, after that, I would start to seek out other people that just had the technology. Now, that's not always the case. I mean, as a hiring manager, I have to make a decision, and I have to make a call over how do I determine that relevancy. And there's a story that I've told on the stream in the past where I was working at a company, and we were dealing with energy usage and trying to get people to use less energy, like less electricity specifically. And I had a boot camp graduate reach out and say, "Hey, I'm really interested in what your company's doing. Can I meet you for coffee and chat about my project and whatever?" And so I went and I met this person for a coffee, and they were super pleasant, very professional, and they had built this whole project very similar to what our company did. Like it was almost like they went and looked for like a local business and looked at what it was that we built, and they built a very similar project and had high value proposition. But the boot camp that they went to was a 9-week boot camp, and so their level of skill wasn't quite there. And for what I needed on my team, because my team was very small, I needed someone that could hit the ground running and be a self-starter, where a lot of the work that they were doing and a lot of what they were sharing was that they wanted to do more pair programming. They didn't know anything about software testing, and I'm like, if you don't know software testing, then I'm going to have a harder time bringing you on the team for sure, because I need to trust that you're not going to break production. But at the end of the day, what had me the most interested in this person was just the enormous relevancy that they brought as part of wanting to talk about their project work and wanting to talk about the kinds of things that they knew about, because saving on electricity usage and so on was clearly very important to them, and it was important to what we did as a business, but that wasn't enough. But I mean, to this day, that was 2015, 2016. So we're going on like 6 or 7 years ago, and that person still comes to mind. When I talk about like relevant projects, that person always is like the first story I want to tell. That person stood out to me so much that I still remember them. I still lurk on their LinkedIn from time to time just to kind of see the stuff that they're involved in now. And there's, they found a developer job. They've been working as a developer. They're progressing through the ranks. And if I were still in that job, I would be like knocking on their door going, hey, remember that project that you built? Like if I was still at that company, I would absolutely be reaching out to that person and say like, hey, like you're at a point now where you've got the kind of experience that I would want you to have. I want you on the team, like come interview. Like I would be reaching out as the director of engineering to like tell them like, hey, you need to come apply for this job. Like I would be working really hard at recruiting that person. Um, but that early in their career where they only had like a 9-week boot camp, um, I didn't have enough confidence that my team could support someone with that little amount of technical experience. Even though it was highly business relevant, I have to make the best decision possible for the business. And the best decision I could have made at the time was not like let's burden the team with someone who's going to need more pair programming and uh, more education and things like that. Like it was going to need we were going to need a lot more than that. But that person still comes to mind. I still remember their name. And like I said, I lurk on their LinkedIn from time to time because of the high relevance that they would have brought. So when it comes to listing out projects, business relevancy followed by um, technical relevancy. That would be where I would start on that. And if you don't have either, then you want to show technical adjacency on that. So let's talk about that one for a sec. So again, if the company's hiring for a Python job and I've got Ruby or JavaScript or something else, like that's still okay to show on the resume. I'm going to look at that and go, well, you don't have Python, but you've got other high level languages. Or, if you've got like C# or something like that, that's also a high level language, then okay, that's going to translate well enough. Like I could probably still consider you as a to get you into Python, teach you some Python. But again, I'm going to be less inclined to even interview you or look at your application if you don't have like any of the background that we're looking for. Like if you haven't built a project similar to what our business does, or if we have like an API tool or something like that and you've never used any of that stuff, it's going to be a lot harder to convince me that you're worth interviewing, that you're worth my team's time to go through the screening process, get you on a call with HR, talk about your background, talk about all that stuff, to bring you into the actual interview process if there's not some kind of business value there. Because again, we need to make the best decision possible about who we bring on the team and who we're going to add to our payroll, because it's expensive to hire developers. It's an expensive process to go through, but you're going to cost our company a lot of money. And if you've got to spend a lot of time getting up to speed on technology, then that's time that, we could probably spend elsewhere finding a better candidate who's more relevant to that role. So it doesn't mean you can't apply for the job, but you're going to have a harder time getting the interview. So that's why showing that relevancy is so critical on these resumes, because the HR recruiters are going to look at it and go, okay, well you haven't done any kind of project like what we do. You don't have the technical skill like what we're actually trying to hire for, and you're more likely to just get passed on, and they're gonna look at someone else. Not even you, Thindle. But again, it depends on what they're actually hiring for and what's important to them. Like, having a strong background in, different kinds of systems and whatever like that, if that's the kind of role that they're applying or that they're opening, then yeah, you would bring a lot of relevant background experience to that kind of role. But like if I'm hiring for a Python dev, you don't have any Python and you haven't built any kind of project even remotely close to what we built or what we're trying to build as a company, or what we're trying to hire for in that particular role, it's very unlikely that I'm going to interview you for that job. So you have to show relevancy in some way. That's why it's so critical to build a good resume and make that good impression on this is the value that I bring to your company, where you can show them directly, like, I've worked in these technologies, but I've also built a project similar to what you do. Now, that doesn't mean that every time you want to go apply for a job that you have to go figure out, okay, what does this company do? Let me go build a project about that. But you kind of want to reverse it. You want to look at the projects that you've built and go, I actually really enjoyed building out that project. Let me go find companies that do that same kind of thing and go target those companies, because that's where you're showing immediate business value of, I did a project about this. I understand it well enough that, you don't have to train me as much, to get into that kind of role. Again, you're way more likely to get into that interview. So that's the key thing here, is you have to understand what businesses are looking for when they're looking at that resume. They're looking for business relevance. Like, how easily can you just fit in on the team? Having a business relevant project is more critical than just the technical skill. But having the technical skill is also going to help you get by the recruiters, because they could look at that and go, oh, okay, cool. Well, you built a project similar to what we do. You do calendaring things. It's like, okay, cool. But, our hiring manager said to look for a Python developer, and you're not a Python developer. So that's where it can be a little bit trickier, but that's where networking comes into play, because you can get somebody to submit that resume where they can say, like, hey, this person I know, I've met, I've chatted with, they don't know Python very well yet. They're learning it, but they've actually built a project very similar to what we do. And so you're getting somebody to advocate on your behalf where someone else is explaining the relevancy that you bring to the company. And so now when they look at the resume, they're like, oh yeah, check out this project that they made. That's where the relevancy comes into play. And that's where networking is going to really benefit you, because you're able to get somebody to sort of speak to the relevancy where it's not something that the recruiter is going to read. So again, showing business relevancy and then technical relevancy, I think in that order, is probably what's going to help out. One piece done. Yeah, the other thing about this mask is there's like different eyes. There's like the squinting one and the question and the confused and like the little wrinkly eyebrows and stuff like that. So they've got like 5 different eyes or whatever. And so you can mix and match, left side and right side and whatever. But that also means I gotta figure out how to print the actual helmet. So for the networking side of things, is there a way to make reaching out to people I don't know not feel strange and weird? Yeah, absolutely. The first one's going to be get an introduction from somebody that does know you and someone from that company. And so if we do, I think it's exclamation point intros. Go check out this link. This link is basically how I describe how to build your network and how to utilize that network to make introductions, because then it's not a cold outreach, it's a warm outreach at that point. Like if you can say, hey, Ian, can you introduce me to Thindal, that works at this company. I'd like to talk about, what they're doing with that calendar project or whatever, because I have a very similar project I think would be really relevant for me to apply for a job there. Now I can make a really strong introduction, between Karzik and Thindal, to say like, hey, Thindal, your company's doing this calendaring thing. This person on my live stream, they've also got this calendar project. It's really relevant to what you do. They would really like to chat with another engineer there. Do you have a minute to have a chat with them? That's going to go a long way. So the link that I shared here, excuse me, is how to use my network to go figure out, does Ian know anybody at this company? But if you can search through my contacts and say, oh, Ian, so-and-so at this company, can you make an introduction? I'll make as many intros as people want on here. I've got, a couple of thousand people on my LinkedIn, and they're all curated people. Like I very rarely just go in and like randomly select like, oh yeah, I'm just going to randomly, allow these people in my network. But my expectation is that if you reach out to me on LinkedIn and you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, that someday I'm going to hit you up and say, hey, Karzik, I've got this other person on my live stream who wants to talk to you about working at your company. Then my expectation is that you're going to pay it forward and say, okay, yeah, let me have a 5-minute conversation with them about that. Now, as you get to know that person at the company, it's less awkward because you've had somebody make an introduction. Now, that doesn't mean that you still can't just network and just reach out to people on your own, but getting an introduction is what we call a warm outreach as opposed to cold outreach. Cold outreach is a little bit scarier. Yeah, I do have Thindle in my network. That improved my network by about 500%. Just having Thindle in there. But having like, you can still do cold outreach. Cold outreach is a little bit scarier, but you can still reach out to them by explaining the relevancy and just say, hey, Thindle, my name's Karzik. I found you just searching through LinkedIn. I've been building a project very similar to what your company does. I'd like to find out a little bit more information about, the kind of tooling or the kind of tech stack. I've got like 2 specific questions I'd like to ask if you have time for a quick call. And if they connect with you, like, that's all you need to do in that little intro message, and just say, I'm building a project very similar to your company. Have you got 5 minutes for a phone call? I'd like to ask you 2 specific questions about the engineering. If they connect with you, send them the questions, and then say, if you've got time to answer these over Zoom, I'd love to actually like have a face-to-face conversation, or Meet or whatever platform you want to use. But if you don't have time and you just want to chat offline, I'd appreciate that as well. So give them the option of chatting live or chatting asynchronously where they can just answer your questions, but give them the questions ahead of time. I think a lot of people are going to really appreciate that you're giving them the choice of how they spend their time. And then from there, it's on you to be professional and courteous and whatever. If you tell them, I want a 5-minute phone call, make it a 5-minute phone call. If you think it's going to be a 10-minute phone call, say it's 10 minutes, and then say, hey, it's been 10 minutes. I appreciate your time. I don't want to like take up a bunch of your time. And if they say, no, it's okay, then let them keep talking. Because the more they talk, the more they're going to like you, and the more that they're going to want to kind of engage with you. Now you can kind of follow up with them like a week later and say, hey, really appreciated that call, appreciated the information. I'm getting pretty close to like applying for that job. Does your company have like an employee referral program, that you can like get some sort of incentive for referring somebody to the company? I'd really like to apply for this job. Now you're giving them a potential financial incentive to go talk about your relevancy. So while you're having that phone conversation with them, or just chatting, offline, well, not offline, but like asynchronously, you can speak to them about like, hey, I see that your company hires Python developers. I don't have a Python background. I've got a Ruby background, but I've been building out this project that's like right in line with what your company does. Now, if you don't have a business relevant project, but you do have technology relevant projects, then you would reverse that and say, I don't really understand a lot about calendaring systems. I'd like to learn a little bit more about that. And you can start to kind of pick their brain a little bit on, what kinds of things go into those algorithms? Like, what kinds of things have you had to consider, and so on and so on. And you'll learn from that aspect, as opposed to learning like, what kind of Python should I be learning to actually get through an interview? And so that's where you're going to kind of reverse that conversation, and you're going to learn more about the algorithms of calendar resolutions and so on, so that if you do get a phone call, you can speak to those algorithms a little bit better. So you're going to learn either way. You're either going to learn about the algorithms of what the business does if you don't have a business relevant project, but you do have technology relevancy. If you have business relevancy, but not the technology relevancy, then you can say, hey, I want to be able to talk about like the actual project that I've done and how I bring relevance to your company, but I don't have the exact technologies that your company uses. What do you think it would take? Can I chat with you about, what you think it would take to change from being a Ruby developer to being a Python developer? Like, what kinds of things should I know? Or what kinds of things do you think your company would value me knowing? You're going to get a lot better information from stuff like that, like having those conversations with people. Thindle says, show them that you've show that you've read or looked at the person you're connecting with. Show that you've read, looked at the person you're connecting with. I mean, knowing that you've at least looked at the company and that you understand like what it is the company even does is going to be important. But a lot of it again is coming from like, I'm really interested in what the company is doing. I've got relevancy in some fashion. Talk to them about that relevancy, but then talk about the missing piece and say, I'm coming from this background, or I've built a project very similar to what your company does, but I don't have the exact tech stack. Do you think that that would disqualify me? Like, could I still get an interview having built this other project? If you don't have a business relevant project, then you're going to talk to them about the tech stack, and you're going to instead ask them questions about, what should I know about calendar scheduling and things like that? Like, what would you recommend that I go build? And then go build a small project about that. Now you have a relevant project. Put that in your resume, go apply for that job. And write up a cover letter saying, I've been chatting with Thindall at your company, and they've been a tremendous resource, and I like what your company's doing, and this is a small project that I've built. And then reach out to Thindall and say, hey, do you have a referral thing that you can submit my resume? Now you're hitting them on all sides. If you're bringing relevancy and you're bringing the technology together, to where you look like a really good applicant for that job, especially if you get somebody at the company referring you. So that's how I would make that less scary, is you have to do networking. Networking is absolutely going to help you out. It's scary to do, but it's a really important part of getting a job. Cool. Let's see. Been going for about 2 hours. I think I'm going to wrap up. Let's go see if we can raid somebody. Who can we go raid today? Mayan Wolf is online. I think we raided into Mayan Wolf last week. Is anybody else doing software today? Got some game development going on. Thindall says, I was just at a conference. Also a great way to network with other devs. Yeah, so go to meetups. Absolutely. But here's the thing. They're called meetups, not show-ups. You have to go with the intent to actually meet people. The hallway track has been gone for the last couple of years. It's getting going again. Yeah. Especially when tech conferences are still kind of trying to figure out, like, do we meet in person? Do we do virtual? Do we do a hybrid of both, where people can show up at the conference if they want, but we're also going to stream it online if people want? The thing that I'm doing in Detroit is actually both. They were trying to figure out, are enough people going to show up? Like, are enough people going to sign up to actually show up in person, or should we just do virtual only? And they got to a point where they're like, all right, we have enough registrations that we're going to do a hybrid approach where you can show up in person for the conference, but if you want to stay home and just stream it, they're going to stream all the talks as well. So that's an interesting way to think about that. But yeah, go to meetups. Meetups are a fantastic way to meet people at various companies. And if the meetup, I mean, somebody just tripped the breaker again. I gotta go fix that breaker again. I'll be right back. It's the only thing turned on the circuit right now, so I don't know why that's having a problem. So I got the UPS and I got the laser printer. Those are the only things plugged into that circuit right now. I don't know why that tripped, but I'm gonna have to move that printer somewhere else. There's also the printer upstairs in the office too, but I don't know if you're. Yeah, I don't know if you're connected on that one. I think that computer has to be turned on for that one to work, but you should be able to print on that one. Sorry, I'm back. That reminds me, I need to get a battery backup. So, I mean, the only thing plugged into this circuit right now is the battery backup on this printer and the laser printer. But the laser printer takes so much energy when it goes into sleep mode to wake back up again that it trips the circuit, and it's a 20 amp circuit. And it's just that printer. I mean, when I move that printer onto a circuit all by itself, it's fine. But when that printer's on, like, with other stuff, it trips the circuit every dang time. So I just need to move it to like a different part of the house or something, I think. Yeah, it does take a lot of juice. I mean, it's So I bought it specifically because it's a printer and a scanner, so I can like just put a bunch of papers on it and it'll like scan them all through. But I think I might go to. So I used to have like just a little modular scanner thing. It was like this big around, and you just feed the pages in, but it wouldn't do double sided. This scanner will actually no, it doesn't do double sided scanning. I want to find like a double sided scanner where it'll scan like both sides of a page and like put it together in the same document. That would be really ideal. Um, so a little life hack that I figured out years ago is if you scan a document where it makes a graphic and it saves that graphic as a PDF file, you can upload that PDF file to Google Drive, and Google Drive will extract the image out of that and do OCR on it. So you can actually search for the text in the image in the PDF. And so you can just scan, paperwork and stuff like that. So the IRS will actually take records in digital format. So if you ever get audited or something like that, or you need to like give them records, you can send them digital records. You don't have to keep physical paper anymore. And so the idea that I had was, well, I want to grab, all the paperwork that I get in, all my tax records and income records and things like that. I'm going to scan them, put them on Google Drive, back up Google Drive onto some other cloud platform. So I've got redundant copies. And then if anything ever happens, I can just give them all those digital copies. But then I can also go in and I can search Google Drive for like, go find all my health records for 2022 when I'm getting ready to do my taxes this year. And I can go get a breakdown of like all the medical expenses and, or whatever that we had to actually do like deductions and things like that for taxes. So it's really handy, but yeah, HP PageWide is like $5,000. Yeah. I don't need something that expensive. But like the little bar scanner thing that I had, it was just this little module thing that would plug in and it would scan a page and you flip it over and you scan the other page and you could just keep adding pages to it and then it would save all that as one document. The printer here, if I feed in a whole bunch of paper, it'll only scan one side of all the paper. And so I've got to like scan a page, flip it over and put the next page on top and it'll scan that one, then scan the first side of that and then flip that one over and put another page on top. And so it's still a lot of manual effort to like go through and scan these things and then save that as a document. It's still kind of a lot of bother. But that's why I bought that printer. But yeah, it uses a lot of energy when it turns on. I need to see if there's like a firmware upgrade or something that'll like reduce the amount of power and not sleep or something. Because like, if he keeps printing now for the next couple of minutes, it'll be fine. But as soon as the printer goes to sleep, when it wakes back up, it just draws an enormous amount of power on that circuit. It's like it's 120 volts to trip a 20 amp breaker. It's pulling a lot of current. Like, it sounds like the printer's broken to me. But I don't really want to have to go buy another printer. So I don't know. Almost like you need a starting capacitor, something. Yeah, it sounds broken. Yeah, maybe I'll reach out to brother and just say like, hey, what's going on with this printer? I mean, it's a couple of years old now too, so it's not like they're going to replace it, but at least find out like, is there something else I could do? Like, should I put that on its own UPS maybe? 2,400 watts for a printer is, yeah, it's insane, and it's not that big. It's like half the size of my 3D printer. Like it's only like half that tall, so it's not like a big, enormous, towering, laser printer or anything like that. Like it's a desktop printer with a scanner lid on top that you can lift it up and scan a page, or it's got the feed thing in off the top. It's not that big of a unit, but it's beefy enough apparently that it's okay. The nanoleaf thing keeps disconnecting. I'm not sure why. Connection refused. So I have a Python script that like tones down the lights behind me here. And for some reason it's hanging up too. So I got all kinds of things to fix down here in the basement. Anyway, we're gonna go find a raid target. Who do we got? We got some. I'm gonna go find somebody that's doing some software development. We got some full stack going on. Let's see, what are they working in today? They're working on some TypeScript. I don't know them though. I've never raided into their channel. We got some game development. I don't think I've raided into that channel in the past. So that's a possibility. But yeah, not a lot of people on today. If any of you are streamers and you want to like go start streaming, I'll raid over into your channel. Game sprites, game development, MMO game dev, 1 week game dev challenge. Maybe. I'm like finding random people at this point. Some guy that I used to watch who would do a lot of streaming about coding is actually streaming live from his car while he's driving around now, so that's not what I want. Who can we go raid today? If anybody's got a suggestion on who to go raid, let me know. Or who to raid. Proton Fig is making Atari music. Team Vash is attempting to make an MMO. Yeah, I saw Team Vash. Proton Fig? I've never heard of them. Let's go see who they are. Commodore 64 coder guru, musician and graphician. Old school programmer. That's interesting. And I miss my Commodore 64. I thought about getting a new Commodore 64. Crutchcorn. Go see Crutchcorn. Yeah, Crutchcorn was the full stack dev that I saw. Yeah, let's go right over there. I don't know them. We'll go meet some new friends. They're doing some React and TypeScript, it looks like. So yeah, we'll go right over there. Crutchcorn. Cool. Well, enjoy sports ball if you're into football, or if not, enjoy people watching if you go to the grocery store like me when everything's empty. But we'll catch everybody on Tuesday. I'm going to do some coding for the website. And then Thursday stream, we'll get back into some maker stuff. I got my painting booth set up, so I'm probably going to do some painting on Thursday. We'll do some airbrushing. So catch everybody over on Crutchcorn. And have a good Sunday. If your Sunday was good, have a great week. Let me know if I can help out. Reach out on LinkedIn if there's anything I can do to help out with your job hunt this week. And we'll catch you next time. Cheers.